So what if your feelings of doubt, overwhelm, or disconnection aren't really a problem, but they are a sign towards your own healing journey? Let's think about this. Now, when it comes to knowing misalignment, you might be feeling that misalignment is just imbalanced energy. Misalignment is a term that you use at a car dealership. Misalignment is just a concept of imbalance. What does that mean? I'm imbalanced. What does that really look like? How do we understand this? So when I first understood or came into this space of hearing these words, alignment, misalignment, imbalanced energy, I had no clue what the heck that actually meant. It took me a while to really grasp what alignment actually meant until I fully experienced it myself. And here's the thing. I think it's so crucial to understand, to get beyond just the fact that these are buzzwords and to understand them in a practical, tangible way where you can walk away from this video, from this episode, knowing if you are experiencing misalignment or you are feeling aligned. Now let's dive in to how to make sense of what the heck is misalignment. Let's dive in. So let's break down misalignment so that it actually makes sense. Am I right or am I right? So here's the thing. It is such a buzzword in the spiritual community to say frou-frou words like spiritual alignment, get aligned, realign my chakras, understand energy. And a lot of the times, some people do not take me seriously when I say these things because they don't understand the practical side of it. All they hear is the frou-frou new age language, and then they roll their eyes at me and look the other way. But here's the thing, misalignment is actually a very practical thing that is occurring, and it has its own signs and symptoms. So I want to break it down exactly what it is, how you know if you're misaligned, and what you can start to do about it, right? Okay. So hey guys, I am Ashley from theawakenedstate.net. If you don't know me, I am a mindset coach, an empowerment coach. I love to talk on all things related to Kundalini awakening, spiritual awakening, most importantly, mindset work and emotional mind-body healing. Okay guys, hey! So how has it been? Okay, so when it comes to understanding misalignment, here's the thing. I want you to break it down really simply into 3 key categories because this will help you drastically understand it. So when it comes to misalignment, there is emotional misalignment, mental misalignment, and spiritual misalignment. Now, when it comes to looking at this, let's dive into exactly each one is and how it shows up. So when it comes to emotional misalignment, it can often show up in a way where we feel overwhelmed or anxious without knowing why. And it can often be a personal thing that happens where we experience old emotional wounds or triggers and they resurface. And most importantly, it is very hard to move on. Now, when it comes to understanding emotional misalignment, we might be finding ourselves disconnected or a bit of emptiness where we feel almost emotionally in a place of, depression or sadness. And often an indicator of an emotional misalignment will really be a play on your more negative side of your emotions. You might be feeling really down, really upset, heartbroken. You might be in grief. You might be depressed. You might even have elements where maybe you just feel really lost and confused, but I am out of control of my emotions. I don't know what to do. I am in a place where my emotions are everywhere and I can't control them and so forth. So emotional dysregulation can often show itself by having a very hard time managing our emotions. And a lot of the times emotional misalignment where you feel stuck and you feel confused, or you feel just emotionally everywhere. And a lot of this will stem from just knowing that you feel blocked or disconnected. And a lot of the times this emotional wound will come up in a form of a trigger or a particular situation. And that leads me to say that, repeat after me, my emotions are an indicator of what I need to heal and change. Repeat after me. My emotions are an indicator of what I need to heal and change. Now, when it comes to knowing this, we have to recognize that our emotions will often indicate to us exactly where there is work to do. So for example, if we have a lot of misalignment with our emotions, it will often show up as triggers. It will often show up as past wounds. It will often show up as victim consciousness. It will often show up in a form of a relationship turning sour and the blame being brought right back onto you. It's an indicator of where you need to heal and shift and change, because your emotions are a signal that is pointing you towards your misalignment. And that is one thing I really want to strive in home, especially as I love to talk on all things emotional healing and emotional empowerment, is recognizing that that sign that something is coming up for you is often an indicator of where you need to shift and change. For example, I used to have a lot of anger and a lot of misdirected anger. And I feel like, there was a lot of stories here around, I grew up with a very controlling, very protective mom. And there was a lot of anger, very unresolved anger there. And it came up for a while, and it really came up strongly as soon as I became a mom. Because I was mad at my mom all the time. And then it came up as soon as I turned a mom. And I think a big piece of that was recognizing the anger and recognizing, what are you here to teach me? What are you here to show me? Why am I constantly angry? What needs to be resolved here? And what ended up happening is I started doing this more chakra healing work and deeper work on my mindset and my emotions. And a lot of this helped me realign. And a big piece of that was recognizing that the anger was a sign of what I needed to shift and change, because there was an indicator of beating myself up about anger. There was an indicator of always feeling shameful about being angry. There was also an indicator of just, feeling, I wasn't a good enough mom. And that also instigated the same feelings of anger and control. And so you can see here how there's a bit of a looping process going on here, where I thought that way and I felt that way. And a big piece of it was anger. So you can see behind the anger, there was a desire for change. Behind the fear, there's a desire for change. I always love to say, fear unlocks desire. Your fears will always reveal to you your natural desires. When you're fearing lack, you're desiring abundance. When you're fearing you're being in a state of anger, you're desiring peace and contentment. You can see here how you can start to use your emotions as an indicator of what needs to shift and change. Okay, not to get too off track here, but when it comes to misalignment in our mental capacity, our mindset, for example, it might show up in a totally different way. Mental misalignment will often display itself more as our thought patterns. So naturally, negative self-talk. So when we think about spiraling thoughts, having lots of anxious spiraling thoughts that are kind of out of control, or getting stuck on a thought and having that spiral, and it's a negative thought and it keeps appearing and looping in the nervous system. And then when we have these negative self-talk, that beating ourselves up, not feeling we're good enough, feeling shameful, and so forth, this can be an indicator of mental misalignment. Because when you come at your energy from understanding that your mindset is in a negative place and you have negative self-talk, it's being projected from within you. So again, just like our emotions are an indicator of what we need to heal and change, our thoughts can also be an indicator of what we need to shift and change. Because when you have negative thoughts and negative resistance, negative thoughts and negative resistance are a signal of what you need to shift and change. Now, it also can display itself as self-doubt, an understanding that we are feeling very indecisive and second-guessing ourselves, and in a space where we might feel very indecisive, second-guessing, overthinking, and have a lot of self-doubt that is creating very, it's blocking our decision-making process, and literally our process to move forward, as a whole. And that is an indicator alone of misalignment. And then there's also, the element of worth and looking at worth, right? So we have this element here of feeling like you're wrong, or feeling like you're failing even though you're not, or feeling like you're never doing enough even though you are. These are all examples of where we can mentally feel misaligned. Because when we mentally are feeling misaligned and I'm not enough, and this is a very, very human, common thing to experience, it can often indicate that we feel very misaligned in that thought. So for example, maybe you either feel like you're too much or not enough, and then you feel like you're failing even though you're making progress. Or maybe you feel like you're not doing enough even though literally physically you've done more than enough, but in your mind you feel that you didn't. This is all coming from misalignment. Now when it comes to looking at this as a whole concept with our mental, we have to look at it's more than just going into I had a negative thought today. It's more like I'm having spiraling negative thoughts. I'm having deep negative self-talk constantly. I'm having lots of doubt, lots of disbelief, lots of doubt, lots of disbelief, and it's blocking my progress. I'm having issues of feeling never enough, and I feel like I'm unworthy and undeserving, unappreciative. These are indicators. It's one thing to just have a negative thought. We're human. It happens. But to understand if you're having those spiraling thoughts, if it's like excessive, if it's repeating constantly, if it's constantly coming up for you, this can often be an indicator of misalignment in our mindset. I keep saying mental, in our mindset. And knowing that is a good place to start looking at and being conscious of your language, and looking at where you can start to make tweaks, most of all. Now, when it comes to spiritual misalignment, the number one thing I want you to think about, how spiritual misalignment might show up really differently, but it can also be kind of more tangible, because it can also feel like not feeling supported by the universe, or feeling blocked by spiritual guidance. Another indicator of our intuition. Spiritual misalignment can often show itself as feeling really lost and confused, or just kind of wandering aimlessly and not really sure what we want to do, or in a place where we feel lost from our spiritual self. This one connects a lot to our intuition. So when we feel misaligned spiritually, it often can display itself as we have a really hard time connecting to inner guidance, and we can have a really hard time with understanding our intuition. And a big piece of this is really looking at those intuition blocks that I like to talk about. Because you can see here how when you are feeling spiritually misaligned, a big piece of that is looking at you might have some indications of where you need to strengthen your intuition. And then lastly, of course, when we think about spiritual misalignment, we cannot forget that there's also the element of where you're experiencing a spiritual awakening, but maybe you have symptoms of awakening that are very overwhelming or really confusing. And this can also often be an indicator that we feel spiritually misaligned. And I'd like to emphasize here that a big indicator of this is in the higher chakras. So we can see here how spiritual misalignment is often coming from those higher chakras. And mental misalignment is also coming a little bit more from like that crown chakra and so forth. Whereas, the emotional misalignment is coming from the lower chakras. So we can see here how we can start to pinpoint this back even to the chakra system. But not to get too far off track, when it comes to looking at spiritual misalignment, Another tangible way we can start to look at this is looking at our sense of beliefs and disbelief of a spiritual power. And to look at, that crown chakra space of where do you feel like disconnected from your spiritual self and your spiritual power, your intuitive gifts, and so forth. Because this will also be another indicator of where there's work to do. Because if you start to look at how, if you are having a trouble where you feel stuck or blocked from intuitive guidance, then oftentimes this is also another indicator of misalignment. Okay, so I know that was a lot to dig into. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to drop them in the comments. I am more than happy to have a discussion with you if you have any concerns, or if I didn't cover anything and you have a question about misalignment or how to diagnose your misalignment, definitely drop that below too. Another thing I want to say is looking at this from a place of very practical terms of looking at your misalignment. This can also often look like, I have a list here. You're constantly second guessing your decisions and you're feeling really indecisive, or you feel really drained. And even after doing things that used to really energize you, you just feel drained and it doesn't feel aligned anymore. This can be an indicator of spiritual misalignment in your everyday life and just things that come up for you. Another thing is you struggle to connect with others deeply and you often feel misunderstood. This indicates that you're either with misaligned people or you're just feeling out of touch. And this can be also an indicator. So some of the thoughts that we might have when it comes to feeling misaligned are, I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but nothing is working. Or I don't even know what I want anymore. Or I feel so disconnected from my purpose, from my intuition, from guidance, and even myself. I feel disconnected from myself. I feel stuck in the same patterns. Like I can't move forward no matter what I try. I just feel lost. I feel stuck. These are all indicators of misaligned energy. And now again, it's so important to understand that alignment isn't about perfection. It's really about understanding where we can grow, where we can heal. And it's also about really indicating, where there's work to do, where we could start to do better, where we can start to heal, where we can start to be healthier, where we can start to manage our emotions better, where we can start to mentally shift those thoughts and have a perspective shift. It's an indicator of where you realize that it's not something that is outside of you. It's something that is happening internally by alchemizing your mindset, your emotions, your thoughts, and most importantly, your actions that you're taking. It is a mind-body system. And so if you realize this, it's not about doing things. It's not about what's out there. It's about your internal state of consciousness. It's about your mindset, your emotions, your actions. And this is indicating your spiritual alignment or misalignment. Now, at the same time, we have to remember, it's not a one-size-fits-all either. A lot of the times, someone's personal alignment will feel different than someone else's personal alignment because it's an indication of who you are, literally as your authentic self. Spiritual alignment is often an indicator of where you are your most aligned self. You are spiritually healthy. You are mentally healthy. You are emotionally healthy. You are in a place of spiritual alignment when you often feel your best. You are often in a flow state and you feel intuitive and confident and you feel emotionally fulfilled and so forth. Spiritual alignment is often a place where we personally are not just feeling positive all the time. It's an indicator of choosing your path of least resistance. And this is the hugest difference when you think about it. So if you want to learn even more about spiritual alignment, we have our beautiful monthly membership, the Soul Aligned Life Academy. It will be opening in February. If you would like to get on the wait list, I will leave the link down below for you if you'd like to learn more information about spiritual alignment. And finally, before you go, I have a free gift for you. It is the Chakra Starter Toolkit, which teaches you all about energy management, most importantly, understanding the chakra system and how you can get a crash course on understanding the chakra system. I will give you a link for that below. And if you really are interested in this entire topic of misalignment, I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask, because I understand misalignment can be a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic to cover. Okay, so like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.